So anti-hero, and like I said, he's I call him anti-hero because it's easier to talk about. But the character doesn't actually have a name. The project is called the Anti-Hero Project, and it's more about the concept than like a heroic name, because he's not a hero. Hence the title. So he's a nameless character, loosely based off of myself. And I definitely want to make a point, though I put him in powerful images, he's a nobody. He's a regular person. He's the everyman that you pass by on the street and don't recognize, don't pay any attention to, like we all do. And there's a reason for that I'll get towards the end of my explanation, and it'll be a little roundabout, and I apologize for that.
Take your time. That's what we're here for.
Cool. Ordinary Joe is also a character based off of myself. He's like I said, he's a metaphor for the perfect conservative American, or the idea of the perfect conservative American. And both represent sides of myself. Anti-hero is more what I would kind of call my Tyler Durden in Fight Club. He's the person I would be if I could throw all of my inhibitions out the door. Ordinary Joe represents all of my inhibitions. He's the guy that has to find comfort in routine and structure, has to go to work every day. He's everything I don't want to be. And anti-hero is everything I would be if I could just toss aside that whole half of me. You know what I mean? So both of them represent me as a whole. And that's what kind of brings this to this piece. This is a really complicated piece to put into words. The piece that I wrote for it, that I'll be performing, I kind of hope will sort of help tie it in together, or it might make it more confusing. At the end of the day, I just kind of want to make something that people will think about and kind of project themselves onto. But this piece, I wanted to do something that really tried to, especially because Volume 1, Duality of the Project, is kind of just introducing the characters and trying to set a tone and a feel. So I wanted to work on art that sort of showed that these are both essentially the same person. One really doesn't exist without the other. So, like in this piece, they're both dressed exactly the same. These are actually my hands, and these also, in a way, are my hands as well.
Did you work off of only visual cues, or did you take a picture?
No, Matthias is my reference photographer. So we go out, and it's kind of like acting, and he takes stills. Like I have all these ideas in my head. Because even though I've studied anatomy, I also wanted this project to be very revealing. One point that I wanted to make is that almost all really good fiction, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a writer, is all based off of us. Like the characters that we create, we all draw from ourselves and how we think about things. So I'm just trying to take things a step further. Like I wanted this to be a very revealing and honest project. So when I was sitting around thinking about this character and trying to develop a way that he looked, I've never designed a character that I liked for more than a week. So I'm like, he's based off of myself. I'm always available for reference. So I just kind of took that step and just made my character look like me. And it's
wonderfully efficient.
And my sister asked me the other day, because my siblings don't really take any interest in my art.
I can relate.
And I mean that's just kind of the way it is. And it's not like they mean it to be mean, they're just not interested in it. But she asked me why it looks like me. She thought it was weird, and I explained to her that it's not out of narcissism. If anything, it's the exact opposite. It's making me face myself.
Right.
That's a lot of the underlying themes of this project is self-awareness and critical thinking. So if I wanted to create a character to promote self-awareness why make him look like anyone else?
Exactly.
You know, why make him, you know, this handsome guy like Clark Kent? You know, just make him a regular ass guy, which is, you know, in steps me, this regular fucking guy that,
right.
you know, just, you know, has a bald head and just a normal guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's wonderfully poetic, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, and the concept of it and the execution.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I kind of hope that, you know, it'll make it easier to relate to.
Yeah.
You know, because it's, you know, how many people can, you have to be really into, and I'm really into geeky comic book culture, so I can relate to Peter Parker being Spider-Man, but most people can't.
Right.
Most people can't look at a guy in a bug costume and go, yeah, I can identify with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people can't. And I'm trying to reach more people than just people who are interested in comic book culture.
Right.
You know, I want to be able to push this into comic book culture. One of my dreams is to have my own table at Comic-Con one day, you know, with my project. You know, however small it is, you know, even if I'm just sitting at a booth selling prints, that's where I want to be. On one level, I also want to be in the galleries. There's many places I want to be, which is why I'm trying to keep this project somewhat loose.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just kind of under the impression that I'm working on a graphic novel. And I am working on an art book, essentially, but it's not a graphic novel. There will be scenes of sequential art, but they'll be more loose and interpretive than, say, like a storyline with a beginning and an end. You know, I want this to be a project that grows with me and changes with me. You know, as my perspective changes as a person, the character's perspective may change as well. So I don't want to create something. I'm trying to create a project that will be my life's work. So I don't want to, 20 years from now, I don't want to not be able to relate to what I'm working on because I've either changed so much, because then you end up with something that's really forced. It ends up being really gimmicky.
Yeah.
You know, this is why, you know, every superhero has to die and come back and then die again, and and villains get killed off and come, you know, like you...
And they still don't really explain why the X-Men haven't aged in 30 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or Peter Parker.
Exactly. You know, if I do this right, Anti-Hero one day will be a 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm really honest about it.
Yeah.
You know? And
I always thought that would be more interesting as a comic book theme to, you know, say Superman, of course, you know, him being an alien or whatever, he would age slowly in relation to us, but he would age.
Yeah.
And, you know, because really, I think like Kingdom Come was one of the more exciting comic book projects that came out.
Yeah, because it shows you that they're more human.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
you can identify with it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
The aging, you know, the frailty of both body and mind and imperfect judgment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, you know, all of that, you know, like the moral complexity and everything has always been what interested me the most.
Yeah.
You know, like the reason why I grew up loving Spider-Man and not liking Superman is, you know, like Clark Kent was this handsome dude that scored the girl, had a great job. You know, he had a successful career and was a great superhero that everyone loved and revered.
Yeah.
Just respected all the way around.
Yeah.
You know, his tough day was his villain, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Clark Kent, you know, he did try to play the bumbling fool.
But he had to play the bumbling fool.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he took off the glasses and it was all over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spider-Man was the bumbling fool.
Yeah.
Who had to struggle to be a superhero.
Who also like had streaks of arrogant prick in him.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that also came from his insecurity as well.
Yeah.
You know, like he got to be a little bit of a bully as Spider-Man.
Yeah, like once he got kind of savvy with his powers, when he was in a Spider-Man suit, he was an obnoxious prick.
Yeah, he was a real snarky, sarcastic guy.
He'd smack a mugger around and mock him for his shoes.
Exactly, exactly. Or his horrible aim.
Yeah.
Which probably wasn't that bad. He was just a hell of a lot faster.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So and even that just shows how human he was.
Yeah.
You know, so I liked the fact that, you know, he lost his job because he was late 8 times straight because he had to stop a mugging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He scores a date with a pretty girl and ends up...
And flubs it.
Exactly, because he's got to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just liked that dynamic. It was more real. I liked the guy that struggled to pay his rent.
Yeah.
You know, it was just more relative to my life.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed that. So I've always felt that artists have an obligation to produce honest work. And that doesn't say that I think that there isn't a place for everything, but as I think I've said a couple times this week, you know, like life isn't all seascapes and rainbows. You know, it's not all just pretty stuff. You know, like it's usually the really hard, gritty stuff that we grow as people from and we endure it. So why not show that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I want people to, you know, we don't have to run from that all the time. We all go through it. We all know that we go through it.
Right.
Everyone is fighting a battle every day. Life is a daily war.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's all hardship, because it's certainly not. But why does all of our entertainment, from gallery art to music to television, have to be just this sugar-coated sweet stuff, or
escapism?
Exactly, or just so gritty and over the top that we can't relate to that either.
Right.
Because the average person isn't a serial killer, but we all like to watch horrible crime dramas.
Right.
You know, why can't something just be a little bit more honest without being all overly dramatic?
Nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exploring the shades of gray.
Exactly.
In between everything.
Exactly. Which is why I like so much gray in this project. I use both pencil and ink to get so many shades of gray.
Nice.
I also like to create the illusion of color. I love black and white photography. I've taken a lot of my influence as an artist from black and white photography. And one thing that I've always liked that you don't see in even black and white comics, you just see just the sharp contrast of black and white. Whereas if this was shot right now, a still of us talking in this room, there would be so many different shades of gray. You know, like your green shirt in contrast to my red shirt would be two entirely different shades of gray.
Yeah.
Whether warm or cool, there's just so many shades of gray that give the illusion of color. So even a black and white photo still gives you the illusion of color. And you don't see a lot of that in illustration. So I went for that.
It's fascinating.
So I've always been sort of looking for my angle to, you know.
That's a great observation. I know exactly what you're speaking of and referring to. Messing around with photography a little bit myself, I did do some black and white, and you know, I've never articulated it quite like that, or even knew I was observing that. But that is a huge thing, and I think that's what makes black and white photography so captivating. Is I think perhaps part of your brain wants to try to figure out the colors, or is drawn to the mystery of like not knowing exactly what the colors are. Yeah,
because you know, like 5 minutes into a black and white movie, you forget that you're watching a black and white movie. Yeah. You don't even think about it. Whereas, you know, at first people might be apprehensive. You're like, oh, it's not in color? Come on.
Yeah.
But 5 minutes into it, as long as the story's dynamic and engaging, you forget. You don't care. It's like subtitles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. 5 minutes into Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you don't know that you're reading the narrative.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's done right.
Yeah.
You know, if it's forced and, you know, you've got a shit ton of dialogue and trying to read and watch the movie, then it's confusing. But, you know, if done right, you don't even notice. Yeah. And so that's always been, not always been something, it's something that I stumbled on just in my fascination of black and white photography that I really wanted to explore. And it took me a long time to do it. In fact, some of my older pieces that I've shown at the Hygienic and at the Pigeonhole before were just practice pieces. I don't like to sketch. I spent, like I mentioned earlier, that whole span of years drawing in ballpoint pen, and I would throw anything out that I screwed up on. You know, like I practice drawing every day, but I don't do sketches. I don't really know if that's a strength or a weakness.
You just kind of jump right into it?
Yeah. But I'll do practice pieces. You know, like I did a piece with an owl, this sort of winged character there that really, those are essentially sketches for me, but I make my sketches finished pieces. But all of those were trying new techniques, even the sea turtles.
So your sketches turn into pieces.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. So I'll do something that's unlike what I normally do. Make it a finished piece, but everything about it was experimental.